Hello! It's been a while, isn't it? I'm Rin, and today's video is a very special one. We are going to talk about some stuff that we left pending on my very first video, as well as discussing some interesting facts about the newer information in the SEKAI universe. I want to come clean with you guys, and formally announce the new redesign of the channel, as well as my V model. You know that even with the other one, I did it myself, and I'm so excited to show it to you guys. Also, I have some stuff to say at the end of the video. I encourage you all to stay tuned to the rest of it, cause we have a lot of things to settle in the second entry about discovering the obscure reality of the Sekais. In the year 2018 was the release of the 10th entry of the Project Diva series, Project Diva X. Also, for those who wonder why the X in the title, this game was very unique. Unlike their closest iterations, the Project Diva F series, this one were telling a concrete story. The premise is about the Kryptonites trying to restore the energy or voltage within the game world. They lack the power to do it because they can't sing on their own, and they need the game owner to help them to go throughout the process. They explain how the world is divided in 5 spaces, called clouds. They consist in classic, cute, cool, quirky, and elegant. These clouds are their own individual world that's been slowly fading out because they were unable to sing. As well, there's these cloud prisons that are the equivalent of the heart of that world. In addition to this, there's this gimmick with the costumes inside the game, known as modules, that change Miku's and the others' appearance, and with that, their personality as well, to be matched with the inherent cloud type that the model belongs. Does all of this sound remotely familiar to you? From this, I have to make a quick recap of one of the points I made on my first video. I will go very much on the surface of it, but if you want to know how we get to those conclusions, or if you want a more in-detail explanation, you can go and watch that video first, and then come back to this one. Alright, here's the recap. On that video, we discussed the existence of the virtual singers as these beings that were in the position to live through the songs that people make with them. The conclusion was that those beings are seeking special holders or guardians to make that job for them, essentially to keep them alive too. But that's not all of it. There's this concept about preserving the feelings inside the songs themselves. All this ties so well with the premise of the Diva X game, which, by the way, on the Vocalist fan wiki says that the quest/story mode is based on a scrap story mode for Hatsune Miku Project Diva, or the first entry of the Project Diva series. To be fair, I searched online if there's any official statement to that, but I didn't find anything substantial. Although I wouldn't label it as a rumor either, we can clearly see a pattern of recycling with the franchise, either be with the songs usage in the games or choreographies on the PVs, and in this case the elemental concept that Diva X brought to the table. A Reddit user, Rash Faustino, at the r/Diva subreddit, suggested the idea of the clouds being the ground to make the Sekai system for Project Sekai. Their headcanon suggests that the connections are every cloud world resemble one of the 5 units in the Project Sekai game. And I think I can agree with this. They are mostly mirroring each other, but there's something off with a couple of bands, like the Cool Cloud. On the Diva X stories, the singers are trying to perform a band to try to fix that cloud, similarly to Leonid's whole deal with the scholar bands. But then, if the Cool Cloud is Leonid, what about Vivid Bad Squad, for example? For as much as this group have solid songs, they cannot fit well in the classic cloud. because the classic is all about the beginnings of the Vocaloid golden era in real time, like the virtual essence of the image of Miku in the digital media, something completely apart from the Vivid Bass Squad street band deal. I think we are pointing at the wrong direction, so stick with me. Diva X have proven that it's mirroring concepts with Project SEKAI, from the Miku based on looks changing personality and these other worlds that coexist together that are source of different types of music depending of what world are in it. In my first video, I explained a little bit how the world map would look like. That essentially is a world inside a bigger world. And there's this space in particular called Between Worlds. That is this hub world where all the Sekais resides in and are separated from one another. Between Worlds is this pocket dimension inside the electronic devices that the human characters interact with, although none of them have been in there completely. Instead, they are transported directly to their own Sekai. So it's more like a gateway thing, just like a browser in the internet. It is a massive hub site that holds thousands of gateways to other sites. I like to do this comparative because a constant factor in both narratives is these living beings inside digital worlds, as in SEKAI refers the Cryptonoids as virtual singers, and in Diva X is the first thing Miku mentions as we meet her. Now let's take a look at the Cloud Worlds concept. Why is it called cloud in the first place? We refer to the cloud as in a virtual space where you can upload something to the internet. It can be for storage or display purposes. So these called cloud worlds are just big files worlds that resides in a digital bigger world. So that means that those clouds aren't in control of the virtual beings, but rather us, the outer digital space users, as we, just like in the real world, put labels and categorize internet stuff by a certain order. These categories that I'm referring to are adjectives that we associate music. For example, melancholic music, upbeat music, hopeful music, and those kinds of things. That way, we can sort all types of media to that specific vibe. Here's the thing, the vibe that the music gives off is completely independent of the genre of music. So you can do mellow rock music, sad techno music, uplifting soul music, and so on. In this sense, those vibes act more like the elemental trait of the Diva X cloud system. Well, I think the clouds in Diva X are, in fact, mirroring something in Project SEKAI. But it isn't the bands themselves, but rather the attribute system. That's right, we are finally making some sense to the typing of the SEKAI universe. You see, it always bothered me that there are these random types that hasn't been explained at all inside the game lore, and they have a huge impact when it comes to play the songs in order to gain even more points if we synergize with it. Are you noticing the similarities yet? Let's push a little bit more. In SEKAI, there are 5 types of attributes in total: cool, cute, happy, mysterious, and pure. I consider those 5 to be the typing system that the cards themselves use to react to the event on running. But what do they all mean? We know that the clouds in Diva X are connected in some way to the attributes in SEKAI. So, in a sense, we can address that the sorting of each of that typing is correlated to certain feeling of a song, independent of the genre of music itself. So, what are these feelings about? If we see every event in the game and the resonances with the attribute it corresponds, that can give us an idea of what symbolizes. Cool attribute is all about harsh truth, the realization of a feeling facing a solid reality. As I said earlier, we, as an outsider of the virtual world, can manipulate this sorting of attributes by how we perceive them in our human feelings. That's why we can level up the attributes in the real world. This gave me even more information about each attribute, since their area items are really specific. Let's focus our attention in the symbolism behind each tree for the sake of this video. In the case of Ku, it's the berry tree. The symbolisms of the berries are the new opportunities in life, the cycle of lives, as well as modesty, since this fruit appears under the leaves, not letting itself to be noticed, like the truth behind the bigger picture. The cute attribute is a tricky one. This one talks about the sensitive feelings, something that is so fragile yet so powerful to shake your ground. It also ties the connection with others, neither with good or bad intentions, just something emotive. Its area item is the cherry, that it symbolizes the innocence, good fortune, and revivals. The happy attribute is tied with the sightless passion, something that burns inside every one of us, that leads us to do things for the sake of our own feelings. It also puts on moving our own life. Its area item is the orange, which is associated with optimism and enthusiasm. The mysterious attribute is more mellow than the others. It's about reminiscence, nostalgia, and the instances of happiness in the middle of a breakdown. The best way to describe it is with the phrase, the calm after the storm. Its area item are the grapes. The symbolism revolves around enlightenment and spiritual growth. And lastly, pure attribute. This one is about mutualism, convergence at the feelings towards a shared end. Its area item is the apple, and it's the most popular yet common among the rest of the items. It symbolizes duality, immortality, and death, just an everlasting cycle of life itself. The energy that feelings provide to music, it's a concept widely explored throughout the story of the Project SEKAI. I think it's time to give a proper explanation about the type of energy that allows the virtual singers to seek the protection of their life source and encouragement to make music that explores those feelings. But we're not over yet, because there's still something that keeps lurking around the secret behind the SEKAI's existence. I think it's time to talk about the concept of the SEKAIs born from memories. And for those who watched my first video, we talk about the feeling in general, that is in a sense a combination of memories and experiences. By that logic, it's not so strange to think that the SEKAIs are claimed to be worlds made out of feelings. They can be also made of the core existence of a feeling, that is, a memory. So let's explore our first case in the Akuno-Taizai Sekai, or the 7 Deadly Sins Sekai. At the beginning of this collaboration event, just as the April Fool's event, Miku greets us, the player, in between worlds. She tells us about this mysterious Sekai made out of memories that are tied to a certain feeling, and that the owner of that Sekai happened to go on a very long journey, and that was what caused the Sekai to exist. But let's pause for a second. We have to clarify who this mysterious character is. To understand a Sekai, we need to know how the owner is. As we have been seeing through the 5 main Sekais, the owners themselves have a very big impact in how the Sekai looks like and how the residents inside those Sekais behave. Like in the school Sekai, Leonid is formed by the childhood friends that made their own band while attending school. The school symbolizes for them not only their daily life, but also it's a statement about how they meet and what holds a very close significance to them, sharing classes and experiences as they grow up together. About the residents, the virtual singers of the Sekai behave as school students, with their own roles assigned and mostly being the stereotypical classmates. In Akuno-Taizai Sekai, we see that we are no longer being hosted by our virtual singers, but instead another group of people that appears to be very apart from each other, but they ultimately have a common trait. Let's pin that for now, and let's see who these people are. We have Margarita Blankenheim, Rillian Lucifen, Alan Abadonia, Kayo Sudo, Vanica Conchita, and Galerian Marlon, all of them being the equivalent of Miku and the others inside the rest of the Sekais. Speaking of which, the Sekai itself, it appears to be a very large hall. According to Alan's dialogue, it's a very big never-ending castle, From what we can see, it has a collection of photographs and paintings hanged at the extent of the hall. All of this reinforced even more the statement that those are indeed the memories of the owner of that sekai, and the cast being ensembled by the people they met throughout that journey. I am not gonna dissect that much on the lore of the EVILLIOUS Chronicles series or Mothy series in general, but I'm going to explain only the parts that are relevant to the connection that has with Project SEKAI. If you want me to cover a full dive on the 7 Deadly Sins series, you can always comment on this video if you are interested in it. For the purpose of this video, I got in contact with another content creator that had much more experience with the series than me. Mario Gabriel needs no introduction. They are an animator and illustrator. They have a very unique art style, and it's mostly known for their fan PV videos of the EVILLIOUS Chronicles songs by Mothy. I will leave the link of his channel in the description of this video if you want to know more about the saga and support this amazing creator. Mario was so kind for answering some of the questions I started asking myself about the identity of this sekai owner, and I think I arrived to a very safe conclusion. In the story of Akuno-Taizai, there is this concept about 7 sins demons that need to inhabit a person in order to live through them. This possession, if we can call it like that, can only be performed by a contract that allows them to gain certain traits of the demons. By doing so, the contractors are condemned to cause malice throughout their lifespan. This is where we introduce the sekai owner, Eluca ma Clockworker. Well, just Eluca for now. Please stick with me on this because this is going to be a wild ride. Remember, I'm not going to mention a lot of details, just the necessary for this theory, because there's a lot going on in this saga. Eluca Clockworker was a very powerful mage. She was the result of 3 souls inhabiting one body. Among those souls resides one of the twin gods of that world, becoming an immortal being. At first, she doesn't remember much about her past or what her identity was. Time passes and she were the sorcerer of the kingdom of Lucifenia, doing prophetic calls and exorcisms. Then, at the Hell Forest, she accepts the mission to collect and seals the vessels of sins before they cause calamities for humans. This leads her on a millennial journey to collect them. Eluca's story implies a lot of involvement of other characters, as well as past lives and reincarnations. We are not going to enter on detail on that topic, but all we needed to know about the character is that she's a mage, a powerful one, she's in a quest to collect the 7 deadly sins possessed objects to stop them to make contracts with anyone, and that she's immortal, so she lived a very long time. But so, what does all of this mean to the sekai narrative? Well, the thing is that this is a meta narrative, which means that we know in-universe that this is a fictional narrative told by someone else. Why do I mean by that? You know, this comes from the idea that every iteration of Miku in the other sekais tells us about the concept of the songs that they made, taking a certain form within the sekai universe. This connects to the idea I exposed on my first video, in which I did a major reveal that the fragment of feelings are manifested as a toned-down versions of a sekai that is ephemeral and lasts only a few instances, due to the manifestation of a powerful feeling. So, if the Akuno-Taizai sekai is a sekai made out of memories tied to a certain feeling, it means that the specific feeling they mention is about the feeling of the creation of a story that the real counterpart, Mothy, is trying to tell. So it proves that it's possible to manifest a sekai based out of an entire fictional narrative instead of a shared feeling, only because the feelings manifested in it were too powerful, and that explains a lot. Let's take a look at the facts. If the sekai is made out of the feelings of Mothy, it takes the form of the memories of their main protagonist of the story that is based on. In this case, it's about Eluca. That explains her existence and mention in this world. That also explains the lack of virtual singers. because the residents inside that sekai are based on the image of their virtual singer counterparts, because Mothy is telling the story through the songs they make with the virtual singers in the real world. That's why Miku doesn't exist in that sekai, just her counterpart within the narrative of Akuno-Taizai, that is Margarita. This proves something very important. Sekais can also take the form of a feeling towards something in particular. If you have a strong feeling about your own story told through virtual singer songs, the story itself takes physical form on the sekai. That also applies to individual songs. That explains the existence of cards that came with a song on an event. Multiple feelings and multiple songs can create an infinite amount of ephemeral worlds that all coexist within the digital universe of sekai. Because after all, if there's a song that encants that specific feeling and it's placed on the digital world, it's most likely to tie to these sekais that are made out of various fragments of feelings. But here's the thing, multiple feelings can be attached at the same song placed on the digital world, but it can also generate completely different sekais depending on the owners. I wanted to discuss for so long these cards because, in my opinion, those have the sweetest side stories of all, and they give us a bigger insight about the manifestations of the sekais. Those are the first cards of Rin and Len in the Reconciliation set. Yes, that's the name I gave them. In this 2 POV story, we follow the original Rin and Len founding a fragment of feelings that leads them to a very toned down sekai inside of a hospital playroom. Inside it, Rin meets Yuta and Len meets Hinatsu. Everyone realizes that they are all inside a sekai resembling the room that Yuta is hospitalized in. He happens to have a very serious lung illness, and Hinatsu came to visit Yuta every now and then. They both connect due to a mutual interest in Rin and Len's music feats. Also, it's worth to mention that Yuta's father used to make music with Rin and Len's voice banks, so Yuta and Hinatsu share the same liking on that type of music. But because of a misunderstanding, they got mad at each other, not knowing how to properly apologize with the other. Both stories are solved by the pep talk that Rin and Len have with their respective children they deal with. And between that conversation, they suggest to make music using Rin and Len's voice banks, so they don't have to be awkward at their first argument and at the same time doing something of significance to the other one. This story ends up in a very hopeful note, as the virtual singers say goodbye to their kids, only to realize that Yuta had a seizure and he was being checked on by the doctors while he was listening to Rin and Len's music. Hinatsu fell asleep doing the same thing as well. We were told by the virtual singers themselves that the world they visit weren't a complete sekai yet, and they weren't sure why was people inside it. I believe that it could be possible to connect people's true feelings to a certain sekai through dreaming. The only requirement is that it has to be a digital device nearby. This same thing happened to Airi at her Fragment of Feelings sekai, because at first she was also sleeping when she entered to stage sekai. The same thing might happen to these kids, but why is it like that? You see, the action of dreaming is where our brain does the most work to consolidate our daily life memories and restrain sensorial receptors in our bodies to fully be able to rest. Again, we end up on the memories topic when it comes to explain sekai behavior. So, we can also manifest strong feelings through dreaming about it, and can cause a new sekai to be born. Rin also says something a little bit curious to Yuta when she was giving him a pep talk. She mentions that Yuta can create his own version of Rin in order to help him with his struggles, and it's a little bit odd to say like that. Your own version of the virtual singers is a very plain hint to the various iterations of the other virtual singers throughout the sekais that the original ones are very aware of. It's like if, in order to allow residents to be on your Sekai, you need to invite them by letting them helping with your struggles, and in that way, you generate your own versions of the virtual singers. It's a very important statement from how exactly the process is for the development of a fully fleshed out Sekai. So that means that the versions of the virtual singers we already know, each one of them represents a role to cover in the life of the Sekai owners. But what about the concept of the decay of a Sekai, or what happened to the residents inside of it? Okay, so with that, I think it's time to wrap everything up. I'm sorry to leave it like that, but I thought it would be better to make this rambling about the Sekais an ongoing series that I will touch every now and then. Because new events keep coming every time, alongside new information about how Sekai operates and how everything works inside the digital world. So with that, I think I'll leave it right here. It has been an amazing journey to search out new info to cover the plot holes in the narrative of the game that has to offer. It's such a delight to share it with you guys. As for this conclusion segment, I just want to thank everyone that keeps supporting the channel. I said before that I was going to try to upload more constantly, but my life has been changing a lot. I'm having a rough jump to my adulthood, and it's been quite challenging to keep up with everything. But I always want to come back to this very thing that makes me happy. And I'm so glad that a lot of people is having fun with it too. I don't want to do more promises like that, but I can assure you that I want to be here for a very much longer time. I must encourage you all to get on the server Discord that I made for those who are interested on the lore part of the game, as well as for those who just want to have a nice talk about the game, the music, the characters, and the culture around Miku in general. I will leave my Instagram pages to both my VTuber account as well as my art account if you want to keep in touch with me. I've been thinking about making chatting live streams on Twitch, so I will leave here my channel as well. I will announce them on the Discord server, so you won't want to miss on that. And with that, thank you so much to get all the way here. I don't know how long this video will be, but I'm so grateful to be another day here with you. So, see you around.